As we start our new series called Frequency, I'm going to give you the end goal, all right? There's actually a reason why we're doing this series, and the end goal is that after these 5 weeks, if you've been coming to church every single week, we hope, we pray with everything that is within us that you will at least just be able to take one step closer to growing in a relationship with the God who is for you, who's not against you, who has so much desire, so much hope, so much vision for your life. And this series, I was having a chat with Jordan and Volta last night, and we were just saying that this might be the most important series that we have at Gracegate, because this is like if Gracegate doesn't exist, if church as in like the people who come together doesn't exist, this is the way that you can personally connect with God. And in the end of the whole series, we hope that we can practically illustrate how God, who is unseen, can actually connect with each and every one of us, no matter who we are, no matter how much we know about Him or how little we know about Him, that we can actually connect with God. So today, sit back. Have you enjoyed the morning so far? I could do the closing prayer and we could go home, because I think the key to this series is 3 words, and you've seen them on screen, you've heard them. What are those 3 words? Stop. What else? Speak and listen, okay? If those are the only 3 words you can remember out of these 5 weeks that we're going to do this series, you are winning, okay? So those are the most important words. And I guess the whole crux of frequency and what we want to unpack is actually our connection with this God who is unseen, all right? If you really sit back and you actually think about it, it is weird, all right? It is like, how can we as human beings have a relationship with a God, all right, with a God who is unseen, all right, who isn't here, who sometimes maybe we can't hear. How do we connect with a God who feels so far away, as if He's like just miles and miles and miles away from us? How can we as human beings connect with Him? And today I want to say that it's actually quite simple, but yet also quite complex to actually connect with a God like this. And I'm going to try and illustrate it in showing you that maybe this connection is what we refer to often as prayer. It is our relationship. It's how we speak to God. And today I want to say that prayer is similar to dating. All right? Prayer is similar to dating. All right? Why is Wesley saying that? Well, if you've ever dated someone or wanted to date someone, all right, the one thing about dating is you are trying to grab that person's attention. Am I right? We try and do whatever we possibly can to grab that girl's attention. All right? And there's different approaches that we use. And someone has communicated this really well, and I'm just going to share some of his ideas about how we go about trying to grab that special lady's attention. All right, what we do, and hopefully once we've grabbed their attention, they will see that we are the person who will deeply and madly fall in love with them, and they'll fall in love with us. We will grow old together, we'll have many kids, and we'll live happily ever after, okay? So there's all these different approaches. One of these approaches is some of the guys will know this really well. It's the friend-first approach, all right? Do you know what that is? You might be actually practicing it now in church as we speaking, all right? You just trying to, get to know someone, sit next to them. Coincidentally, you also turn up on a Wednesday night at the same place. You just, gently and I guess really eloquently, send that Facebook request and start texting and just checking in with each other. But as this friend first approach happens, what the bad part about it is, as you become good friends, all right, what happens? Who knows? You get friend zoned, okay? Yes, this is the problem. You get friend zoned, all right? You're trying this whole strategy and this approach, but eventually you get friend zoned, all right? And that doesn't help at all with this approach, all right? How many of you have ever experienced that? Can you put your hand up? Yes, honest people today, okay? Cool. But then there's another approach, all right? And this approach is the emotional approach, all right? Some of the guys I know in this church have done this before, right? And it is the approach where you're just that emotional guy, all right? Where you send those text messages and like, man, I really and truly love that girl. Like, she's so, she's amazing, but I'm not sure, like, hey, do I actually tell her that I actually like her, or don't I? And because you actually have built this friendship with this girl, she would say like, hey, okay, well, who is this person? And eventually you go on and you say, well, it's you. Like, it's you. I like you. I've liked you since like high school, since the first time I walked into the classroom and I saw you. You were everything I wanted. And like, I just want to fall in love with you. I want to go on romantic dates. I think about you all the time, all right? And to which what happens, she responds and she does what? Man, yeah. She thinks you're weird. She's like, no, I need a guy like Mike's who can bench press, big kilos. And I don't want an emotional guy. So that's what happens with that approach. But maybe you've also experienced the jerk approach, all right? I know the jerk approach, all right? Where that girl is just like, she's everything. And there's so many guys who are just surrounding her and just trying to win her attention. And eventually you just do the jerk approach. You just like, when she says hi to you, just like, hi, whatever. You just act as if you're it. And it happens, all right? And eventually the problem with that is she actually realizes that you are actually quite a jerk, all right? So it never works out. There's another approach. I don't know. It's the thug approach. Maybe Nate, you would know about that. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's something to do with the way you walk and you just act. And anyway, sometimes, Nate's case, it worked, all right? So, yeah. But the problem with all of this is that we've tried all these approaches in this hope that we will actually grab this girl's attention. But here's the problem, and it's this. It's that when we're in pursuit, all right, to grab this girl's attention, we are using an approach that often is not genuine to who we are. Did you get that? When we're actually trying to win and grab someone's attention, we're trying everything possible that we can do to win their attention. And while we're trying to do this, we're actually becoming something we're not, all right? And as we know that even if this has worked, and it has worked in many cases, but as this may work, like just later on down the track, she'll start seeing your true colors. And eventually she'll wonder, like, who is this guy? Like, this is not who you are. This is not who you claim to be. So even if it works, usually the outcome is not that good. There's this, it says, a disingenuous approach will never lead to a genuine relationship. A disingenuous approach will never lead to a genuine relationship. At some time, and this is in any relationship, be it with your parents, be it with your boss, be it with your friends, that if we are not true to ourselves, to who we are, the relationship will never, ever be a genuine relationship. It will be something that is just fake, that is just upfront. So I think we often try these different approaches with God. In our ability to try and connect with God, we try all these different approaches, and we think, hey, these approaches may work so that we can have this relationship with God. Some of them are something like this. It's the genie in the bottle approach, all right? Have you ever tried that with God? Maybe when it's exam time, yeah? And you're sitting and you know that, hey, you have not studied as much as you should have. And you're just saying, hey, God, today as I sit in this exam room, I just want to claim this verse that nothing is impossible, all right, with you, all right? So please, God, just please show up now. The other approach that we've maybe tried is in case of emergency, all right? That we only call to God when things are going crazy or out of control, when we're literally like, we don't have enough finances now, or, you know, she said no for the 100th time, or something has happened. In case of emergency, we just cry out to God. Maybe that's our approach. Or maybe it's the Shakespearean approach, all right? That we think that if we can just say the right words, if we can just make sure that we express ourselves with the these and the thous, and that we quote the Bible verses eloquently, that actually God will hear us and He'll be like, wow, it is amazing. And He'll connect with us. Or maybe I know for a fact probably that every single person sitting in this room has done this approach. And this is the bargain approach. All right? Have you ever bargained with God? Where you're like, you know, God, look, if you do something for me, if you get me out of this situation, God, I promise you, I will be at Gracegate every single day of the week, okay? I will just, seriously, God, if you can just get me out this mess, I promise I will go and feed the poor. I will do everything. I'll go on every service trip, just whatever. We bargain with God. And the exact same thing is that, you know, if we try all these different approaches, all right, but it is not real to who we genuinely are, we will never have a genuine relationship with God. Here's the crux of it all, and that is this, that we don't have to try to gain or to get God's attention. We don't have to try and grab His attention. There is no approach that we have to try and do to actually say, hey, God, here I am, because we already have it. The God that is spoken about in the Bible is a God who is already there for us. God was giving you His attention way before you ever gave Him your attention. Before you even decided to come to Gracegate, God was already thinking about you. He cared about you. There is literally nothing that you and I can do to get God's attention more. There is nothing we can do to get His attention more. He's already given us His attention. He already cares about you more than you would ever care about Him. And He's already thinking more about you than we will ever think about Him. You see, I think God is literally just waiting, just saying, hey, you don't have to grab my attention. You've already got it. But now I want relationship. I want relationship. The best relationships that I can think of in my life are the ones where I can just be real, where I can actually take my shoes off and there can be some toe jam between my toes, all right? And they're okay with that. It's the relationship where I can tell dumb jokes and they'll still smile and be okay with it. It's the relationship where nothing, absolutely nothing, will persuade them or change their mind about the way they care about me. That's the relationship that I feel that God is inviting us into. And it's not that He's not listening, because God is always listening. And now He's just listening for our response in this relationship. As we journey through this series on frequency, there's this quote that I want to share with you. And it's a quote, and it says this: it is the nature of God to do what? To speak, all right? It is who He is. He is a God of revelation. In other words, He wants to reveal Himself constantly to us as humanity. He was from the beginning of time right through until today. He is still the same God, and it is His nature, it is who He is, to speak, to communicate. Yeah, in the story I want to share with you this morning, it's a story that you may have heard before, but it's about this young boy. And this young boy was I guess, struggling with the same thing that we struggle with, is like, how do we know when God is speaking to us? How can we hear His voice? Like, how do we know it's God? And in the story of Samuel, he's a young boy, and I'm going to read the story, and I hope that through this story we can maybe just grasp a very simple concept to how we can actually just maybe hear God. How can we connect? How do we know when He's speaking to us? The story goes like this. It says, now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord before Eli. He was actually working with Eli. And the word from the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were infrequent. I thought that's quite interesting, that there was actually a season where it was difficult to hear God's voice, where there weren't as many visions, or there weren't as many prophets who were communicating for God. And this is a time when Samuel was around. The story goes on. It happened at that time as Eli was lying down in his place. Now his eyesight had begun to grow dim, and he could not see well. And the lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was. So here's Samuel, this little boy. He's working with Eli. And yeah, we also see that it's in the temple. They're working in the temple, and the ark of God was there, which they believed was actually where the presence of God was. Okay, He was there. Goes on and it says that the Lord called Samuel, and He said, what did He say? Here I am. Okay, here I am. Goes on. Then he ran to Eli and he said, here I am, for you called me. But he said, I did not call, lie down again. So he went and he lay down. Here we have the story. Samuel is lying down at night and he hears this voice, all right, calling his name. He runs over to Eli and he says, hey, Eli, here I am. And Eli responds and he says, what? I didn't call you. I didn't call you. He says, go back to bed. So he goes back to bed. The story goes on. It says, the Lord called yet again. He says, Samuel. So Samuel arose and went to Eli and he said, what did he say? Here I am, all right? For you called me. But he answered, I did not call, my son. Lie down again. So second time he hears his voice. He hears his name being called, all right? He goes to Eli and he realizes, hey, Eli didn't even call me. Now, if you're a young boy, all right, think a bit about this. If you're a young boy, you're hearing this and you go to Eli and Eli says, I didn't call you, and you're the only two guys in the temple, all right? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? You got to be thinking it's a ghost. You got to be thinking you're going crazy. You got to be thinking how you're going to change the sheeting in the morning, all right? Because it's just going to smell bad, all right? Honestly, like he must have been. He goes back to bed. Story goes on. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, nor had the word of the Lord yet been revealed to him. All right? Which is interesting, I thought, that because Samuel was actually working in the temple with Eli, and he didn't really know the Lord's voice. He didn't really know. It had never really been revealed to him. All right? Like how does God speak? Honestly, how do we know it's God? Story goes on. So the Lord called Samuel again for the third time. And he arose and he went to Eli and he said again, what? Here I am, for you called me. Then Eli, he discerned that the Lord was calling the boy. All right? Probably not the wisest man, because only on the third time he got it. All right? And he said, hey, guess what? This is God. God is actually speaking to Samuel, this little boy. Then it says, and Eli said to Samuel, go lie down, and it shall be, if he calls you, that you shall say what? Speak. Speak, Lord. Like if God is calling you by name, Samuel, you respond and you just say, speak, Lord. Speak to me, for your servant is listening. So Samuel went and he lay down in his place. Here's a story of Samuel trying to figure out how, like, I hear these voices. I hear God trying to speak into my life. And Eli says to him, hey, if you hear God speaking to you, if you hear him calling your name, all I want you to do is respond and say, hey, God, speak. I am listening. All right? Here I am. I'm your servant. I'm listening. Today, if you're sitting in church, I can guarantee you that you have the same questions that I do about like, hey, how do we really hear God? Is God's voice like, is it something we can, audibly hear? How do we know it's God speaking to us? Sometimes I think we're like Samuel and we're not sure who's calling our name. So today, I've invited Jamie to join me on stage. Can we give him a hand? All right. And I roped him in and I said, hey, Jamie, we got this question. How do we know? How can we recognize God's voice? If we believe that God is speaking to us all the time, all right, that he is constantly trying to speak into our lives, how can we recognize his voice? So I just gave him that easy question to answer for us. But thanks for joining me, Jamie.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
What are your thoughts? What do you think?
I think the key really is to sort of try and figure out how you can get rid of all of the distractions in life, because there are so many of them. I mean, there are heaps of things that would potentially stop you from hearing what God is trying to say or connecting with God. I mean, one thing for me in particular would be just general busyness. I mean, there's so much stuff that I have going on a week-to-week basis. Monday night, I've got football. Wednesday night, I've got Spark. Thursday night, I've got cricket. Friday night's band practice. Saturday is Gracegate. Yeah, it's packed. So finding time to just sit down and try to actively connect with God, it's really hard to find that time. That's one thing that I find.
The busyness, yeah.
Yeah.
Finding the time. Can you relate to that? Busyness, that it's just like, I mean, how do we actually stop? How do we just stop our agenda? Especially, I can tell you guys, it's easy for us, and you would probably agree, Jamie, to stop soccer on Monday nights after Monday night.
I don't understand how this keeps coming up.
Well, we're in church, and I want everyone to feel really comfortable about who we are, Jamie. So maybe you could just share a bit about what happened on Monday night's football game. That be okay? This is just a side note, okay? So we're just going to transition quick.
Thanks for that, Wes. So just to give a bit of backstory, thanks, Kenny, for your support. Gracegate has a five-a-side football team that play on Monday nights. Historically, we've won championships. It's been awesome. Yay, go Gracegate.
Just the last season, we actually the current champions at the moment.
We are the reigning champions. Monday night's game was a completely different story. The ref stopped the game at halftime because we were losing so badly that he didn't want to see the second half of the game played out. Because what was the score at halftime, Wes? Can you remember? Was it 22-0 or something like that? 22-2. Thanks for remembering that, Kenny. It's good to have my back. Thank you. But yeah, the ref stopped the game at halftime and mixed the teams up so that it was an even game. Yeah. So that was extremely embarrassing. Thanks, Wes.
Huge. But I thought we'd share that because that, as Christians, we thought that's a great idea. Let's just mix it up, get everyone playing. But Jamie, you forgot a key part, that there was an all-white in their team.
Yeah, there was an all-white in their team, actually, and another guy who played for New Zealand under 20s, so I think we can be a little bit forgiven for that.
Okay, cool. So back to our thing, getting distracted, all right? Football, that's something that could distract me, grab my attention often. One of the things I was just thinking about is our smartphones, all right? How often, I don't know about you guys, but you just on your phone, you're not even really sure what you're doing on it. You're just like browsing around and you're like, oh, why am I in this app? Am I supposed to be in this app? I don't know. And you're just browsing through and like it's just grabbing your attention when actually it doesn't actually have to. It happens to me all the time. I find myself on my smartphone on different apps, being busy for no particular reason. There's no priority to it. Another thing, I was chatting, Jamie, to a few people, and they were saying, hey, one of the other things that could be sort of grabbing our attention or I guess not allowing us to connect with God is fear. And just like, I don't know your thoughts, if you have any thoughts on fear.
Yeah, I guess specifically in terms of doubt as well, like, because the thing is, if you're trying to have a relationship with God, if you've got this little seed of doubt in your mind that, oh, what if he's not real and all this kind of stuff, then that fear can very easily be that distraction that sort of hinders you from having that relationship with God.
Yeah, fear. So I want you to think just a bit about what could be grabbing your attention, what could be the thing that is actually, I guess, drowning out the voice of God, right? What is it that is in your life? Is it the busyness? Is it maybe fear? Is it something else? Is it relationships? Is it whatever that is? I want you to think a bit about it. And today we want to try. This is a big reason why I've asked Jamie to help me, because he's got a great brain on him. We want to try and illustrate this to you in a way that you can experience it and see it for yourself, that you can leave today thinking about that and thinking, hey, that thing's grabbing my attention. So in order to sort of get rid of it, what do I have to do, right? What do I have to do to get in on the same frequency as God? So, Jamie, are we going to do this?
Let's do this.
Are you guys ready? Can we do something a bit different and weird today? Is that okay? All right. Let's do this, Jamie.
Let's go get
All
the
right.
stuffing. Just put your chair there. Yeah, perfect. Cool.
This is going to take a while, so sit back. All right. We'll just get the stuff.
Can you grab that side? Oh, ouch.
Good. It's not a puppet show, all right, if you're thinking.
Or a magic trick. All right, I'll get the other stuff. It's a lot heavier than I remember.
You good?
Yep, all good, thank you.
I'll move this to you.
Yeah, thanks. Now this stuff might look a little bit scary. And in fact, this big box here does say power signal generator on it, but we're not going to zap anybody. That's not how we teach Christianity here at Gracegate. We don't buzz you until you believe.
Could be a good idea.
Might work. This is a strobe light as well, so heads up, if anybody is sort of prone to epileptic seizures, please bear in mind. I'll let you know when I'm turning it on. But yeah, just close your eyes. And this is a vibration generator. Okay. Can you grab that? Yeah, sweet.
All right, Jamie.
So I'll just plug this in. Now what we're going to do is, Wes, if you could grab, is it that side? I think it is, yeah.
Sure can.
So here we have a string that is fixed at both ends, okay? And one of these ends is hooked up to this power generator. And what it's going to do is it's going to make this little pin vibrate up and down very, very quickly, which will create what's called a standing wave inside the string. Now, if you can imagine getting a skipping rope and sort of holding one end and flicking it, you know how the wave goes across? Yeah, it's going to do the same thing, but because that other end is fixed, it's going to bounce back. And what that does is when they interact, it sort of creates what's called a standing wave. So it looks really cool. I guess the best way to demonstrate it is just to show what it looks like, eh?
Sounds good.
Right,
All
see
right.
if this works. Fingers crossed. It's been about 5 years since I did this in school. All right. Can we sort of roughly see what's going on there? Perfect.
So, Jamie, what are you doing there?
Sorry, yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm adjusting the frequency, or how many times per second this pin moves up and down. And that sort of is related it's to do with the length of the string and how far apart the different ends are. But if you get certain frequencies, then the string essentially achieves resonance, which means that it's sort of bouncing as big as it can, basically, with the greatest amplitude. So I'll just get it right. Cool.
So, basically, to try and illustrate what we're trying to communicate is this would pretty much be like, I guess, our life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
So many different frequencies trying to grab our attention all the time. And in this, I guess, God is there as well, continuously also, speaking in our life. And yeah, I guess every day we got to battle with like, hey, what frequency are we actually going to tune in? How are we actually going to see how we can really listen and hear God's voice? So, all right, Jamie, what next?
What next? The next thing we'll have to do is actually dim the lights. Because what we're going to try and achieve here, if this is a symbol of our life and how busy it is, we want to sort of isolate God and sort of tune into God's frequency so we can see it very, very clearly, right? So in order to do that, we're going to need to dim all the lights, and this is when the strobe comes in. Can I actually kill this television? How does that work? Oh, thank you. Okay. So I'm just going to hook up the strobe light now.
Can I just ask quick, does your life look like this? Just busy, crazy? Yeah?
Alrighty, so the strobe's going on in a sec, guys. So for those of you that want to look away, now's the time. It will get to a speed where it's not a problem anymore, but I'll just start off slowly. So what we're going to try and do now is isolate God's frequency in this. So somewhere in this string, we can see slowly that we're starting to see God's frequency when we just tune in.
So are you adjusting the frequency there?
Yeah.
There's something about God's voice in that it is not this overpowering voice that is trying to, I guess, drown out everything else, because he's a God who doesn't want to force himself on us. I love this because it just shows the unforced rhythms of grace. As Eugene Peterson speaks about it, it's this voice that is, amongst everything. It's still there. It's still trying to speak into our life. It's still moving, but it requires us to actually tune in. It requires us to stop. It requires us to listen and to slow down. And one of the cool things about, I guess, God's voice, and as it's his nature to speak, is he designed us to speak back. He designed us to be in relationship with him. He designed us to respond to this voice. And as we try that, I guess we struggle. We struggle to hear him because of all these other things that are trying to grab our attention. But at some point, we actually just get on the right frequency. And there's this it's meant to be, like we're in sync. There's a verse in the Bible that speaks about God, and it's in James 4 verse 8, and it says, hey, as you draw near to God, He will draw near to you. As you draw near to God, He will draw near to you. I don't know what busyness is going on in your life. I don't know all the difficult relationships, the tensions, the things that are drowning out God's voice. But through this series, we want to invite you to draw near to God, to tune into His frequency, to experience this sort of tranquil peace that God is trying to instill in your life. God, as we take a moment this morning to reflect on who you are and the type of God you are, that you don't require us to be anything that we're not to enter a relationship with you. But you're not a God who is going to sort of trick us into or try and, persuade us, or I don't know, like just beat us to grab our attention. You're a God who just throws it out there and says, hey, I've got the best option for your life, and I invite you into relationship. And today, God, as we start the frequency series, we're praying that you can teach us throughout the week, throughout each Saturday that we come here, how to grow our relationship with a God that we can't see, a God that we can't always hear. And I pray that you can just tune us in. May we just tune the right frequency. May we just be on the same page, and may we hear what you're trying to speak into our life. Help us to stop. Help us to speak. And help us to listen, God. God, may we leave church today with an experience that we can grow from, and an experience that we can actually put something into place, that we can test out this frequency. So we're praying for this. Show up in our lives, show up in our chaos, in our stress, in our busyness. This is our prayer in Jesus' name.